So if anyone wants a copy of today's presentation, as well as my contact information, it will be available to you. Second off, I just want to say greetings in general from our agency, our director, who is Clint Osborne, and the rest of the team that's working today. I do want to also explain that the district, as you know, hopefully you know, that we're hosting a major event in the city that's requiring street closings, requiring information to the public. It's called the NATO Summit. As you know, as a major district government entity, we support all of the emergency operations of the city. And so if I get to be short and brief, hopefully you'll offer me some grace and understand that our community engagement team is a part of the city's overall emergency operations. So for a major event like today, which is major for the District of Columbia and all of the partners, is to ensure everybody's safety and security. How do we do that? We do that for the District of Columbia over in the city's Emergency Operations Center. And I'm happy to work with anyone on this call to have a tour to see how we're set up to work to protect anybody in the city against any of the hazards that I'm going to talk with you briefly about today. So today's agenda is very brief. I'm scheduled to be here from 11 a.m. to 12. What we wanted to do is to talk about HSEMA, the District Government's Homeland Security EMA, talk about the local threats and hazards to our city, sort of explain how we work emergency management in the city on behalf of everyone, whether you're a resident, business owner, tourist, whoever's in the city. We're here to support all of the agencies, both district and federal. Our focus for community engagement is always emergency preparedness. And it's emergency preparedness for residents and businesses and tourists so that they know if and when something disastrous or catastrophic happens, number one, what our priority is going to be for the city, how we're going to be able to help transition into delivering services to everyone that needs them. And then in my final slide, I do have a slide about how we all can be trained up. Training is, to me, the best way to preparing for anything. So let me continue my slides. A quick agency overview. Our mission at HSEMA is to lead planning and coordination of Homeland Security matters, emergency management. You can visit us at HSEMA at hsema.dc.gov, and you will get these slides that show exactly what I'm communicating to you, including who our agency director is. You also want to always know your Homeland Security director, right? This is our community. We are DC. Mayor Bowser has appointed him. He is Mr. Clint Osborne, a major player and leader when it comes to public safety. If you haven't seen us on media, he's been addressing this in the media. The police chief has been addressing it in the media, as well as the mayor. And I'm speaking specifically about today, which kicks off the NATO Summit. So I have a slide here that shows you exactly what we do in emergency management, how we work in 5 phases: responding, recovery, mitigation, prevention, and protection. Those are our main mission areas. How do we do that? As a city government, we support and operate the City Government Emergency Operations Center. But people often, if you don't have a tour, you may ask, well, what are you all doing in the EOC? I'm going to give you 4 quick bullets. What we're doing is we alerting and notification, in that terms of alerting the public, alerting senior officials, alerting public safety officials, federal partners about an incident or pending incident. When we're active in live like today, what we're doing is compiling reports, data, and documents that will support Mayor Bowser, her public safety officials, federal partners, residents, tourists, and so on. One of the main functions is, how do we know what's going on? Well, we do know what's going on oftentimes in the city because this agency runs a 24-hour operational center. And what they're doing is monitoring weather, road conditions, the environment, so that if you get a heat alert, or if you get something that says, hey, the air quality might not be great because there are wildfires in Canada, those are the kinds of things that we're tracking in terms of awareness of our community. Why? Because we're briefing the mayor, her team, the federal partners, and so on. In terms of resource management, we are at HSEMA, we're a support agency to every agency in the district government. And oftentimes want to see us leading. We do lead community outreach. We're out front talking about emergency preparedness. But on days like this, we are leading and supporting every other agency that's working right now out on the field to help keep us all safe. Who are those agencies? Obviously, MPD. Obviously, the fire department, the Department of Health, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Works. So as a team in DC, we're all working together in our EOC on behalf of the residents. The last thing that we'll do simply in the EOC is coordinate all the logistics. If people need things, we're there as an agency and a city supporter to get resources. People need food, water, ladders, trucks, ice, I don't know, anything that comes across us in terms of the EOC, that's what we're there to do. One of the key things we did during the pandemic was make sure we had enough ventilators, for example, in the city, enough ventilators for people that may have needed to. So that explains the EOC functions. Now I'm on a slide that says there are 7 guiding principles to how we conduct our outreach and engagement. You'll see this on your slides when you get them. 7 guiding principles in terms of how we conduct our outreach and engagement. Here are the 7 things. We plan and prepare, right? So that's hopefully what we're doing today is preparing, and hopefully you'll look at your own agency plans when I'm finished with the call. We include, and we are demographically diverse in the city. It doesn't take a scientific person to understand how diverse Washington, D.C. is as the nation's capital. But when we do and conduct community outreach and engagement, we're including everyone, as I mentioned, residents, business owners, tourists. In those categories of residents, we have a diverse population of seniors, young people, people who speak various languages, people who have different access and functional needs, right? So we see that every day. If you're out here like I am, every day you see how our city is demographically diverse. The third principle here is we have to collaborate and have a shared purpose, right? When I deliver this slide, I love it because I always ask our shared purpose. We all have a shared purpose. The stakeholders I just mentioned, residents, business, houses of worship, right? We all want a safe and secure Washington, D.C. That's our shared purpose. Federal partners have that shared purpose. Their Bowser and Hurricane, they will have that shared purpose. Our local council officials want a safe and secure Washington, D.C. All of our stakeholders do. And that's where we are, D.C. That's where we are aligned on that purpose, mission of public safety for everyone. Okay. So now I'm on the 4th bullet, which is openness and learning. Hopefully, I'm creating an environment right now where you'll be able to ask questions, follow up with me. Hopefully, you'll learn something at the end of the day. Hopefully, you may have learned something now. I'm on slide 6, but it's all about our 5th bullet here, our 5th guiding principle, which is transparency and trust. Okay, transparency and trust. So if I'm scheduled for a presentation, you're going to trust to be here. If we have technical difficulties, we have multiple ways to communicate, correct? That's why we're doing emergency preparedness. So when I clicked on my Zoom link, it didn't work. I don't have a Zoom app, even on my phone, nor my laptop. So my question was, well, Dr. Polk, can I join the call by phone? And may I still deliver the PowerPoint slides? Okay. So it's about transparency, which is we had a little bit of a difficulty, and trust that I'm going to show up or somebody from my agency is going to show up when we're scheduled to be there. The 6th principle is impact and action. And hopefully our engagement teams always create some type of synergy. I've worked on community outreach since 2003 here in this city. And I've been a part of the community and the team, touching people, talking about emergency and disaster preparedness. Sometimes people say, hey, I want to prepare. And some people are like, hey, well, I'm facing issues a little more catastrophic than what you're talking about right now, but thank you for the information. At either case, as an agency, we're serving the public. So we want impact, but we also want you to, at the end of these topics and conversations and engagement, we want you to create action. We need your action because, guess what? No secret here. The federal government has plans when things happen in D.C. The mayor has plans when things happen in D.C. The missing link will be how prepared is our public to engage. We did a great job, I think, for the pandemic. Did a great job for the pandemic, but we have to have action. My seventh bullet here is sustained engagement, which is what we've been doing in the community long before we were HSEMA. Before we were HSEMA, Homeland Security, EMA, we were the emergency management agency. That agency existed for decades before we became HSEMA. So there is a need. There is a need for sustained engagement across all communities, because every state, jurisdiction, every community has an emergency management group. We need to participate with all of our communities. That's our challenge, and have them participate with us. So that's bullet 7. One on slide, let's see, slide 7, and I have a few, you'll see when you get it, there are key agencies that do respond to incidents in DC. So I want to explain who those agencies are. The Mayor's Office on Community Relations and the Joint Information Center. The DC Fire Department, MPD, DC Health, DPW, Public Works, and DDOT, Transportation. In most incidents, whether it's a small one or if it's catastrophic, these agencies right here are going to take the lead, and they'll be out there in the communities, servicing people, handling the incident, and HSEMA is a support to all these agencies. Agencies will be coordinating any resources that they need to be successful. That's what we will be doing. The next slide is how do we engage our community partners? This is where we come in, you and I. DC Villages Collaborative and HSEMA. This is our slide right here. How do we engage our community, our partners? We conduct outreach and integration. We talk about accessible emergency communications. We talk about if there's a need, how HSEMA is going to canvass the community and determine what are the needs of our city. What's the primary need? Is it information, communication? Is it food? Is it water? Is it shelter? Are there service animals needed? There are a lot of considerations we have to manage. Evacuation planning, accessible emergency transportation, mass care. That includes power and shelter. So we're able to provide power and shelter in a disaster when a resident has to leave their home or business owner. And the last thing we have here is emergency planning. Hopefully what we're doing today is preparing and planning, and we can meetings and drills. And hopefully maybe you'll be a part of one day. Current examples of our outreach and engagement strategy. I'm not going to go over all of the 4 bullets here. 1, we do operate a 24/7 fusion center, and I mentioned that. Those are the folks watching, helping the mayor and her officials know what's going on overnight at 2 a.m., 4 a.m. There's a weather coming. There's a protest merging. There's roads happening to be closed. So all of that information we have watching intel analysts taking care of 24/7 in the District of Columbia. Another thing we do, which you may know of right now, I'm hoping so. If you can raise your hands, because you're on camera. I'm not going to see you. But let me know and let someone else know who can see you. Do you know about Ready DC? Ready DC is our community outreach program where we send outreach liaisons into communities to talk about how to prepare, to talk about how to register you for Alert DC so that when something catastrophic happens, that we don't know what's coming. Okay? We're going to be able to alert you about a lot. But sometimes what happens when we don't know? And things just start happening, right? You are going to want to get the word through Alert DC because that's the mayor's official channel to mass notify people that things are happening and what she expects. The last thing I'll mention here is that we do always work in partnership, and one of the ones I have here on this slide is the district's Department of Energy and Environment. They do a lot of work in the city in floodplain management on how residents should be prepared for insurance, flood insurance if they need it. And then they talk about other environmental issues. I think I talked about one in the beginning, which was how are we aware about air quality and things like that when there are wildfires coming from Canada. I'm hoping I'm painting a broad stroke as to the work of our whole agency. And it's really the community outreach is why I'm here. But remember, we're part of a larger picture a larger programming that will have a lot of employees that you may not meet. You know, you meet the outreach team on a regular basis. So as a part of the operations and intelligence unit, there are some things that they're asking us to make sure we continue communicating. The district has 27 homes, okay? And they know this because there was a community risk assessment conducted in 2022. These 27 hazards, to me, explain why the public, whoever you are, just have some type of plan for you and your household. Again, that government agencies have plans. People have plans that work in government, but the public is the missing link. The more prepared you are, the more resilient we are as a jurisdiction, as a community. And those hazards that I mentioned, there are 27. They range from human-caused incidents, technologically caused incidents, and then natural disasters. Each of our community and engagement team members, I'll go through all of our names so you have them as a matter of record. But we are assigned to 2 wards in the city, and we're assigned to make sure we're communicating all of these hazards. We have been kind of cautioned, like, don't overwhelm people, but we do need to educate and inform people. It's asked us also to highlight a few of them so that it's not overwhelming, so that we come back and talk about the remaining hazards. So I'm going to mention 27, but today my focus is a couple of things. One, we're in the middle of a heat emergency, and I need to make sure I understand that you know what the symptoms are of the heat illness and heat stroke. A heat stroke, you're going to have to call 911. During the illness symptoms, and I'm going to share that with this group too, you need to get somebody indoors, cooled off, in air conditioning. I mean, I deal with heat myself. I don't work well, and I don't mind mentioning my age because I'm thankful to be alive. So I don't mind mentioning to one that sometimes I have heat problems, and I just will start just sweating. Okay, so I've learned to manage that. Of course, cool towels, cool napkins. But there's one thing I found recently at a local store. I'm not going to mention the name of the store. They had one of these cooling masks. They're great for migraines. They're great for just keeping you cool. But I purchased one because I know I work in severe heat. We do major events. We just had one recently during Juneteenth. It was extremely hot outside. Extremely hot, but our community engagement team was committed to going out in the community. So I said, well, how do I prepare? Well, I found this cooling mask. You let it cool in the freezer for a minimum of 3 hours. And then if you need it, should you have a headache and onset of just feeling faint, lightheaded, symptoms like that, you can put that mask on. And truth be told, I have used the mask, and I like it, and I carry it with me now every day, because I don't want to have issues on top of the heat I already have to deal with, right? So it's managing your own personal situation so that you are resilient, so that you can continue, so that I can continue doing my work. And I enjoy it every day. But I need to be prepared myself so that I'm not a liability. So that somebody comes to the event and says, well, we've had an emergency, this person wasn't prepared. You know, and furthermore, for those of us who are on medication, some of us are on medications. We don't need to be outside if we don't have to be. Okay? So stay indoors and stay cool. I'll get back to the heat emergency. The other emergency I want to talk about is the threat of hurricanes. In this city and other cities, we also have threats of tornadoes, hurricanes, and flooding. So I mentioned those as examples of natural disasters. Okay, so we have heat emergencies, flooding, hurricanes. There's one that people always ask us about and ask us to help coordinate, and that's the Run, Hide, Fight active shooter training. And we do that. That's a man-made incident. We all need to understand what we need to be doing, you know, before the incident, during the incident, and after it. And we do have a fact sheet that I'm going to share with this group about that type of threat. So I just mentioned for today, we have 27 hazards total. I'm talking about the 1, heat emergency, 2, hurricane season and tornadoes, and then the third one is Run, Hide, Fight active shooter. Okay, those are the 3 I want to just make sure we mention. So let me run through the list. Is everybody okay? Somebody give me a shout out, a nod, or something to let me know to continue because I want to capture today's presentation with the 27 hazards.
Yep. We're
good?
good.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope I'm being specific with the information, but feel free at any point to reach me. Here's my email address. I'm a community outreach specialist. I'm Kim, Kim, .mccall at dc.gov. Kim.mccall at dc.gov. That's just my first and last name at dc.gov. So here are our 27 hazards. I'll be brief, but I want to make sure I do it. So active shooter, biological release, chemical explosive, civil unrest, cybersecurity incidents, drought, which is a water shortage, earthquake/sinkhole, electromagnetic pulse, EMP, epidemic or pandemic, radiological release, solar activity disruptions. That's something disrupting from the sun, from outer space, the sun. And so that's what a solar activity disruption is. An example could be an EMPG, electromagnetic pulse. That type of activity can disrupt telecommunications, internet activity, things like that. The next one is thunderstorm, which includes thunderstorm, hail, and lightning, a train derailment. If you've been in the district for a while, you know that we've actually had a few train derailments. One was catastrophic right in our city. Transportation accidents, urban fires, utility disruptions, tornadoes and derechos. Those are wind events. A winter storm such as a blizzard. I like talking about the blizzard. I worked in one of our blizzards. It was historical. It was 3 feet of snow. It shut us down a little bit, but we managed to recover, and we worked well as a team. And I think that was also under this mayor's administration years ago. Outside of that, we also have erosion, extreme temperatures, which is what we're under today, extreme heat. And we also can have the reverse, extreme cold, where people need to come out of their homes. I remember in Texas, I don't know if you remember this particular disaster, but it was a winter storm in Texas, and they had ice building up inside the home. It's very interesting to see those photos. But extreme temperatures, whether it's heat or cold, is a threat. Flooding is a threat. We have 3 types of flooding here in the district. Riverine, inland, and sewer flooding. A hazmat release, that's of some type of chemical or biological weapon. A hazmat release could also be not a weapon, but a nature or technological incident. Hurricanes and tropical storms. We're in hurricane season now, and you're in FEMA or emergency management. We talk about this all hurricane season. So we'll be talking hurricanes from June, which is when the hurricane season kicked off, until November. There are things that you should do, and that's every homeowner should be prepared to deal with the threat of rain, power outages, protecting your home from in-seating water or any type of water coming in. So that's like if you have sandbags or the ability to use sandbags. For power outages, we like if you have flashlights. We like if you can use your food, that's good, and you don't have to get rid of a lot. But things about food and power outages become important, especially if you use medications and devices that require electricity. So on to the list. I'm still at my 27 hazards. Now we're at improvised nuclear attack. Obviously, if we're under that type of threat, there's a big chance that all of the federal and military partners might be involved. An industrial accident, any type of failure of dams or levees, which we do have levees in the city, any pipeline explosion. Okay, so I just tried to briefly go through our 27 hazards, and these hazards help me address the question which we hope we're addressing for the public. Well, why do I need to prepare? Why do I prepare? You just mentioned 27 hazards. Why should I prepare? This is what we like to do with this slide. We like to ask people to prepare so that you're reducing stress and anxiety, that you're mitigating any type of injury or death to yourself, your family, or community members, that you're maintaining social connections, that you're helping others, and that you're promoting some type of personal resilience so that factor into a community resilience so that we all bounce back together. Right now, I like to stress too that maintaining social connections is so important in all type of incidents, just regular day living. We work with seniors. We don't need people to be isolated because of age. We don't need people to be isolated because of access and functional needs. We don't need to have people isolated because of race, culture, gender, preferences. Those are not reasons. Actually, those are reasons, if we think about it, we want a resilient community. Those are reasons to maintain social connections, and that's if we want to bounce back and be connected to others. And we want to help others and promote community resilience. Now, FEMA, and we always include them, that's our federal partner. They have a resource out here if you want to look at it. When you get the slides, I have the information printed here. It's a publication called Are You Ready? It's an in-depth citizen's guide to preparedness. It was updated in September of 2020, and it is available in multiple languages. And folks, I'm going to be winding down. I'm at 11:32. I do want to allow more questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and start thinking about those. I'll speak for a couple more minutes, and then I'll gather the questions, and we'll talk about that. And I'll close out the presentation hopefully by 11:45, which is about 18 minutes from now. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So emergency preparedness. Why are we talking about this? In DC, we have a campaign. It's called Ready DC. Hopefully you've seen our engagement teams in the public. Hopefully you've talked to our agency before. Hopefully this is not the first time. But please visit us at hsema.dc.gov. That's Homeland Security, EMA.dc.gov. We have a theory here and the notion that we work behind that it takes 4 things for people to be ready. 1, they have to know what's coming and be aware of how to connect with local agencies. So the what's coming question, hopefully I just have to give you some broad strokes about what could possibly come. 27 hazards. And I said, hey, let's focus on 3 of them. Okay, let's focus on the 3 of them. We don't want to be overburdensome. So right now we're in a emergency. So I highlighted that. Okay, so we're in hurricane season, highlighting that. And we know that people are still shooting in the community. And if you're in the community, there are options you have to do, but you got to practice beforehand. So be aware, make a plan. What are you going to do? Do you notice your exits when you're out in the community? Do you know your emergency exits? Every building facility you go into. Do you know how to get out? Do you know multiple ways to exit? You may not even have one exit available in a crisis, but you may have an alternate. Think about that as you're in different facilities. It doesn't matter what the facility is. It could be a house of worship, a school, it could be a movie theater. Wherever you are in a facility, note your exits. Make a plan for that. Do you have a plan for dealing with the heat? I shared a personal one with you. Hey, I'm transparent, right? I'm building trust. I deal with heat. And it's because of my age. Okay, but how do I deal with that? I found something to support me in that because I'm going to continue working heat emergencies. You know, I'm a city government worker. We are dedicated to preparedness response and all the other things that we do. All right, so I have to be prepared. I got my mask today, just FYI for everybody. Have a plan. The third thing you need to do is build your own kit. Everybody, doesn't matter who you are, and FEMA put this out years ago. We need disaster kits in the home office and car. Home office and car. And I like being a local DC representatives to say, well, everybody's not in a home office and car. I see people on bicycles, scooters. They're kind of like getting around on a lot of different modes of transportation today. Whatever your mode of transportation is, please consider having a plan and how you can sustain yourself on whatever you're using. Have a small kit available. For me, when I leave the house, I make sure, especially again during the heat, I'm leaving with fans and bottles of water. I have to work 10 hours today, so I have to make sure Kim has what she needs. Not relying fully on DC government, except they are going to supply our meals. They do supply meals, but my specific needs for me, including my allergy medicine, my blood pressure medicine, except I should have had it by now, as well as cooling devices are what's going to help sustain me until I'm finished at 10 or 11 o'clock tonight. But I have to have my own kit, and everybody on this call should have one in the home office car. Because what happens when we get a disaster and that we haven't been able to share a lot of information about, and now you're without power, or the gas station is closed, or your ATM is down. Now it's like, oh, I was going to get cash today. Well, were you prepared? One of the things that I like to do too, and this pertains to me just personally, but also professionally, keep all of your devices charged up every night. Laptops, mobile phones, anything that requires power. Make sure it's ready for the next day already so that you can get through the day. Then the last thing we want you to do is be able to stay informed. I went through my 4 steps of readiness. First one was be aware. Second one was make a plan. Third was build the kit. Now I'm going to stay informed. This is the last one. We'd like you to stay informed with us in the mayor's office. We want you to sign up for Alert DC, because Alert DC is going to keep you aware. It's going to tell you what you should be doing in the middle of this crisis, and it's going to alert you about what's happening. Key things I want you to think about. Hopefully you get some questions together. For me, I got some questions for you right now. How will you contact your loved ones? Where will you meet? What will you do with your pet or service animals? Do you have the supplies that you need? Do you know where your important documents are? How will you keep your home safe? Okay? General questions we ask that you consider in your plan, and then customize your plan for your situation. We always want you to make the right call. We work with the OUC, Office of Unified Communications. They say call 911 when you have a crime in progress, medical emergencies, or you have fire, smoke, or smell of gas. Call 911 when there are crimes in progress, medical emergencies, fire, smoke, or smell of gas. All of the other calls you have for the District of Columbia we take at 311. All other calls at 311. I do want to mention that I am posting at 11:45 mark that we wanted to achieve. 11:38. I will have room for your questions, but I do want to leave with this: in an emergency, you can text 911. Okay, we want everybody to know that you can text 911 in DC. There are 3 scenarios that they say you should use text to 911. If a person is the victim of a crime and the perpetrator is still there. All right, the perpetrator is still there. The person is the victim of a crime, or the crime is happening in front of you. Then you can text 911. For someone who is deaf and hard of hearing or has a speech disability, they can use text to 911. So any access and functional needs, just text 911. And then the last situation is if a person has sustained an injury that prevents them from speaking. So, for example, let's say, it's not a good example, but it's a real one. It's like real scenarios. When I'm sharing my story, they're real stories. So I was coming out of the house here on First Street. Bebopping. I was on the telephone talking to my family, and I was trying to show them something. It's like you're trying to do a selfie while you're on the phone. Well, that's not a good idea. Some people have lost their lives doing it. But I was trying to show them my backyard from the phone while I was talking to them. A long story short, I slipped down the steps and broke 3 of my ribs. It was still an emergency. It's something I could have prevented had I paid attention, but I'm trying to get that selfie, and I'm talking to my family in real time. Like multiple of them. It's like a conference call. My point is, if I could not speak for myself, and this is something my partner and I talk about, well, you could have been laying at the bottom of the steps here, like not able to move or get your phone or anything, right? And so you have to think about those type of silly emergencies that you can prevent if you're just paying a little bit more attention. The night before we had an ice storm, but I didn't. It was January. I didn't think about the night before it's ice when I ran out to get my selfie. But I broke through ribs, recovered successfully. But that could have been a situation where I would have been able to possibly text 911. So I'm going to conclude now. It's 11:40. I really appreciate everyone's time on behalf of our agency and the work that we do in the city for all of our stakeholders. Just thank you for letting me be here to do emergency preparedness. It is a priority for all of us in the public safety cluster, not just us at HCMA, but all of the. I'm sure you've seen the police chief out this week talking about NATO. You've seen the mayor out talking about NATO. So they're doing this to make sure we're all prepared and aware of what's happening. And so thank you for letting me do this. Always, if you want to report something, use 911 for police and fire. You can also text MPD at 50411. That's an anonymous text line to MPD, 50411. There's also a suspicious activity phone line at MPD. They're the only ones to get it. It's 202-727-9099. 202-727-9099. And that's to report suspicious activity or behavior. Then the last way that you can contact law enforcement officials is if you want to make a report yourself. I use this online website. It's called iwatchdc.org. iwatchdc.org. All of this content will be made available to you. I got 3 minutes left, so I would like to open the floor up for a conversation. And thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCall. Just one quick question. There was a question in the chat about where do people, what's the best place for people to go to get the Are You Ready information? Would that be ready.dc.gov or is there another location?
That is correct.
Okay.
No. It's ready.dc.gov. Mm-hmm. That's where all of the presentational materials from all agencies are available, ready.dc.gov. And then our agency website, which is also a part of our presentations. So it's hsema.dc.gov, hsema.dc.gov. Right. And that way you have both of our sites. And if you have any questions, then people can email me at kim.mccall@dc.gov.
There was a question that came in, what should people do when cell phone networks go down? Is that something you could maybe quickly address?
Yes, absolutely. I love that question, and thank whoever it is. Give them a big round of applause from me. I really appreciate that, because one of the key things, if you don't mind, I will definitely mention here because it's a perfect segue. So kudos to the questioner on that. So one of the things that we talk about is everybody should have a disaster kit. The top few items you want to have is a battery-operated flashlight. In addition to that will be your food, your water, your medication. The fifth thing I'm going to mention is that battery-operated radio. Battery and or solar-powered radio. I use one every day. It's a part of my just understanding of what's going on. You may hear it now. I listen to 103.5, which I believe is still WTOP News. The reason I like WTOP News is it gives you a good understanding of weather, a great understanding of transportation, road disruptions, and general information. So when we're talking about being aware of what's going on, we need the battery solar-powered radio because Mayor Bowser and her public safety officials, if your internet is down, they're going to probably come on the radio think as if we don't have it. And I like this point of discussion because it allows me to reiterate, if we're in a disaster or catastrophe, that means we're probably going to be without something. Okay, we're going to be without. It's going to be a disruption of services, whether it's internet, electricity, water, gasoline. The list is long. Just went through 27 reasons honestly, that could disrupt our way of life in the city. So get plugged in. This is my get plugged in message. Sign up for Alert DC. Also, have your disaster kit ready with provisions that will sustain each member of your family for 3 days or longer. Again, I like the on longer part. Steve says 3 days. I like on longer simply because it took longer than 3 days to get people helping Hurricane Katrina. I mean, the whole nation, we saw it on television. We saw the hurricane lead up. We saw the weather alerts. We know it's coming. There's catastrophe and there's significant loss of life and death. Not just for flooding, you know, it was lack of food, water, it was dehydration because the hurricane hit during severe heat there. So I say all of that to get back to the questioner who asked about how do we get information if the internet is down. Please tune to your local AM/FM weather band radio stations using an AM/FM solar power device. We do work with NOAA. That's a major partner here for the district government. And the NOAA website actually will show you the type of weather radios you should use, as well as the American Red Cross. So those are some devices I ask you to really think about, because you don't want to be unaware and unprepared when something happens. You'd be like, well, I didn't know a hurricane could happen. I didn't know an earthquake could happen in D.C. Now they believe us. You know, I was working with the agency doing outreach before the earthquake that shook us up. And we were talking about it, one of our former directors, like, how do we get people prepared? I said, hey, let's talk about earthquakes. Let's do that. Okay, let's do it. We talked about earthquakes, and sure enough, in 2011, we had the experience of one. Okay? So the reason we're saying prepared is because we know from a community risk assessment standpoint that these things are likely and can happen. So I appreciate that question. Is there one more before I go? And I appreciate everybody's time today.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything, so thank you so much, Ms. McCall. We really appreciate it. All right, thank you all very much, everybody. We're going to have our next one of these on the second Tuesday in August, which is the 13th, again at 11 a.m. The same Zoom link will be used for it as well. So please, hope you'll join us. And thank you, everyone, very much for tuning in today and getting prepared, and visit ready.dc.gov to help build out your emergency plans.